Alright, so here's a quick tutorial if you're doing something like where you have a standard or shiny surface, like in this case the counter thing here is shiny, so ideally when you composite this oven in, you would see the shininess on the counter. And this is totally a student example. I figured I would just harvest it since it was available, and I know that it was set up like reasonably well. So, if I render this, this is what I get. And this is using Arnold. Ouch. But, yeah. So, I mean, you see there's like some, what is it? So there's some shadow back here, but there's no reflection on the bottom of this like you might expect. So what I might do, you need to use some render passes if you want to render this out. So what I'm going to do, I'll just take this, counter area here. I've actually assigned it a new shadow matte. So just, right click, assign new material. Arnold and AI Shadow Matte. What I'm going to go do is, so normally it'll, so this is normally when you apply a Shadow Matte, this is what you get. So what I'm going to do is actually go down and check on, under Diffuse, Indirect Diffuse, and under Specular, Indirect Specular. And the Specular one is what's going to be really important if you want that highlight on the counter. So you'll notice, like, once I check that on, I do get a little reflection on the counter here. Now I could just save this image, like if I'm happy with this, I could just, do a file, save, whatever, and call it a day. If you did want a little bit more control over how this, I guess, was rendered in, what you need to do is render with layer passes. Arnold calls them AOVs. But basically you can render like the specular, reflections, etc. all separately. So in this case, so what you can do, by the way, is under specular you can adjust the settings of this. So if I set this to 1, it's going to make that like really intense as a reflection. I could, theoretically, what I should be able to do is actually like map in a noise texture to this. And if I just sort of fiddle with this, I might take it down so it's like way darker. I'm just spitballing here. I'm assuming that maybe if I were to do something like this, it would help break up that reflection a little bit, just so it was like a little bit maybe more natural to the marble. Another thing you'll notice, like as soon as you do this, it does matter. So like when you have a reflection here, you're gonna want to like line up the area at the front here so that it actually goes to the edge of your counter, if that makes sense. But anywho, so assuming that I'm happy with that, all that I would do is go into your render settings. And you want to go to this tab here that's called AOVs. Just select your shadow material or shadow matte. And you'll notice basically it gives you all of these. So all of the options for like indirect diffuse, shadows, all the stuff that you basically selected earlier. Just going to grab them from available AOVs and dump them into active AOVs. And what that'll mean is it basically will render these separately. It also, so you'll notice, like maybe you'll notice it doesn't render the what was it called? Like the specular, indirect specular. So if I go back into my Shadow Matte 2, I'll just drop down under this AOVs tab, and you'll see here, it's like, here's all the other stuff it added, and then for some reason it doesn't give you the option to add indirect specular. So all you want to do is just copy that name, so you can do Control-C, do add custom, paste that in, and create. And you should see that it adds another indirect specular little thingy here. So when you're testing them in your render video, normally, like my render view earlier was just displayed like this, and if you need like, so normally there's like a thing that's like beauty pass or whatever here, just click view, enable AOVs, it'll give you this beauty drop down. So what this is showing you is, here's like the beauty pass, like all of your stuff, all of your nice materials, all that good stuff, just rendered as one image. I can go down and select these individually, and you can see that it's giving me indirect diffuse. So this is like where the what am I saying? The color, I guess, of your oven or whatever you're rendering is being reflected onto the ground. Indirect specular is what I'm actually interested in terms of the reflection. And the reason that this is appearing black and white is that's just the color of the oven. So like if I grab this, I'll just break the connection on this door and turn this blue, and you'll notice as soon as I do that, like this changes. So that's not like a thing that only renders black and white. If this is colored, it'll reflect the color down in there as well. It just so happens this object isn't particularly colored. So what I would want to do, I'm just gonna turn this off real quick. Render, and if you ever, I like progressive IPR, but if you go into render, you can just turn that off, and it'll render as, what am I saying? It will render as, I'm spacing out so hard right now. In little cubes. I do think this is easier to like figure out when it's actually finished, if that makes sense. But anywho, so I'm just gonna run through really quick and just save that image. UT, PNG. I'll do TIFF. So I'm incredibly paranoid. Alright, so here's my diffuse. Do file. Grumble. Where am I going? So file, save. The rest of this video is just gonna be me compositing. So if you know how to do that, then you are welcome to ignore this. I just want to demo it in case people are wanting to see it. TIFF shadow file. What am I doing? Save image. And yeah, I might just ignore all that for now, honestly, because I'm feeling a little lazy here. So I am going to. I just want to get a really quick render of just the oven, so I'm just gonna do a really hacky thing and just sort of hide all of this stuff here. And what am I doing? Alright, so this should theoretically just give me the oven, only the oven on the background, so I'm just gonna save that as a oven TIFF. Alright, so now I'm just gonna find wherever the heck I saved this. And cool, so I have beauty, oven, all of this good stuff here. So I'm just gonna drag my oven. This is like oven with no interesting features on it. And then theoretically I should be able to just drag all of this stuff on here. I thought I had a specular map somewhere. I thought I made that. Anyway. Oh, okay, cool. So that's the indirect spec. So as soon as I add that on, you can see it adds the reflection in there, and I can go around and fiddle with the transparency, etc. of that. So again, this is just a good thing to do if you want to make your scene look more realistic. In this case, you probably also want to like remake this thing in here, since this is like pretty darn shiny. Make a new shadow map for that, and then just like make this like way shinier than the counter. That kind of thing. So here's like my shadow. Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head why the oven is just black. It's a little weird, but yeah. So anyway, you just sort of comp your stuff together in that way. That's again mostly just how I would get shiny reflections on reflection-y objects. Yeah. Also, I did a kind of gross job rendering the reflection in this. Probably would make more sense if I actually, yeah, no, never mind. Yeah, cool. So reflections.